jets are in the boxes, and the clowns have all...
Well, I was in private practice at a law firm first. That's when I started volunteering here. Then I became an assistant city attorney, and then I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And then I became a Superior Court judge. And I did that for 10 years. And after 10 years there, the governor appointed me to a vacancy on the Supreme Court. That was in January. I started of this year, 2012. And then I had to run for election, which I just won this month, on the 7th of August, to keep that seat. So I'll be starting a new 6-year term in January. In terms of the Latino community specifically, it won't change how I rule on cases, but there's a whole other aspect to the job, and that's being the face of the Supreme Court, the face of the judicial branch. So I try to, as you mentioned, I used to go to your elementary school for Career Day and speak to the kids about staying in school, about considering a career in the law, either in law enforcement or prosecution or defense, or as an interpreter or a court reporter, or as a bailiff, and of course also as a judge as well. So I play that role. I go to high schools as well, and I try to encourage the seniors who are 18 to register to vote and to participate if they're eligible in elections, and to consider pursuing a career in public service themselves. Well, first when I came to Seattle, which was about 22 years ago, 23 years ago, I was looking for an organization or a group that I might volunteer with and get to know Seattle a little bit better. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was used to having some connection with the Latino community. So I looked in the phone book. Back then people used phone books, and I found El Centro and came and took a tour. And Hilda Magaña gave me a tour of El Centro, and I began meeting people, and then began volunteering here, helping with the kids' programs and meal programs. And eventually started doing pro bono, that's work for free for El Centro, volunteering as a lawyer for El Centro. And eventually I was invited to join the board.
40 years. I mean, El Centro de la Raza for me has obviously been my whole life, because I've devoted almost 40 years to it. But in that, it's made me a better, I believe, a better person. It's made me become courageous. It has, I've learned so much in terms of understanding how our society works. Why is there poverty? Why is there racism? Why is there war? Those are questions that were answered for me here at El Centro de la Raza.
El Centro is one of my first homes away from home in Seattle for me. A community I was able to get to know and work with and respect. It's a place where people can come when they have needs and where they can develop and become leaders in the community.
So in many ways, and I think that if you were to talk to different people here at El Centro, is that in many ways El Centro has been, you know, a school.
El Centro provides a place for people to gather, for kids to learn, for children to be cared for while parents are working or looking for work. It's a meeting place and a place for unity, for leadership, for development of training, and for the protection of civil rights. It's important to be part of a democracy, and being part of a democracy means participating in that democracy and asserting your rights when it's important to do so, and protecting the rights of others. It's how our democracy works. It's a very American approach to organizing politically, to informing people so they can make informed choices when they're voting, when they're supporting initiatives, and being part of the greater community, advocating for our kids, and so that we can improve the welfare of everyone.
He believed that all people must be united. People of all races must come together to work to create a more dignified life for everyone. And he would always say, in building Dr. King's beloved community. So that was one thing. And then he had a profound love for people. He believed that all people had a role to play and could contribute to building that beloved community. So I think those two are the most important. And I would say that a third is that he taught us that we needed to have courage in what we do, and that something may seem uncomfortable, you may be nervous about it, but the only thing that you had to lose in that given situation is your fear, and you would become courageous then.
Roberto and I worked together on some cases at El Centro, some issues that came up where I was a pro bono lawyer for El Centro and for him as well. I remember him as someone with great energy and enthusiasm, with a great sense of humor, and someone who encouraged me to have big dreams. And I appreciated that very much. He always was working hard on a project or multiple projects, and I enjoyed that drive, that enthusiasm, and the optimism that he displayed.
My relationship to Roberto is, I think a lot of people know, is that he was my husband, and he was my best friend. He was my political ally, that I would say. He advised me on a lot of things. I learned a lot from him. He was the father of my children. So that was my relationship with Roberto. Well, the fact that I've been with El Centro almost since the beginning, and I've done everything from secretarial work to writing policy to janitorial work, to doing security in the building, being directors of different departments that included the Community Services Division, the Child Care Center, and then became the associate director. And I think that the current position that I have is that I've developed throughout the years in terms of learning about the organization, learning procedures, practices, etc. They say that you become an expert when you have sort of 10,000 hours of any given topic. Well, I've been here for 40 years, and so I have lots of 10,000 hours and the work that I've done. And I think for the most part, I think the most important part about my position is that I believe in the mission, the goals of El Centro de la Raza, the role of advocating, being an advocate for our community. And I think a person in my position and being in the leadership of an organization, it's important to be able to believe in that and manifest it daily in my actions and working with our staff and our community. Well, we have some wonderful plans, and I'm so glad that you're asking that question. Here we are 40 years, almost 40 years, and the powers that be at the time didn't think that El Centro would survive. They thought that there would be infighting, we wouldn't raise the money, we wouldn't be able to fix this 3-story school building up, but certainly throughout the years we have. And so the biggest plans that we're embarking on that, that will be here for another 40, 50 years or longer, is that we are going to be building 114 units of housing. There'll be retail space, office space, performing arts center. There'll be expanded childcare. There'll be sort of a plaza type for small micro businesses. And so that's going to be an amazing development for El Centro de la Raza and for our Beacon Hill community and for the broader Latino community, because it's going to be an amazing development that will benefit